notice, this video is not intended to instruct. Its purpose is entertainment. It has no warranty, either written or implied, and none shall be inferred. The data model used was Hornady's standard online ballistic calculator with standard G1 drag function. All inputs are identical, including a 10-mile-an-hour crosswind except for the ballistic coefficient and weight. For the purposes of discussion, let's exclude terminal ballistics since these two projectiles are specialty subsonic bullets. I draw your attention to the left page. It is for the 500 grain and the 175 is to the right. Notice how similar the velocity is at 250 yards. There's only 10 feet per second difference. The wind drift is also similar in round figures at 8 inches, with a bonus of 3/4 inch going to the 175 grain bullet. It's been a pretty flat race up to this point between the 175 and the 500, but when we start to talk about energy, we see it's a long chalk between them. The 175 is not quite 1/3 of the 500, but it's close. Now let's look at the energies. We see that the 500 has 1224 foot-pounds of energy, and the 175 has 428. And what is about 1/3 of 1200? 400. So we're very close to 1/3. Now let's look at the general formula for this, and we see that it is the kinetic energy is equal to 1/2 the mass times the velocity squared. Because we're doing subsonics, we've set the velocities equal in this case. They're exactly 1050 at the muzzle for both. Therefore, the kinetic energy is proportional to the ratio of the masses. Let's take a look at the condition where the bullets weigh the same and the velocity is different. Well, what's going to happen from the general equation is the kinetic energy is equal to 1/2 the mass times velocity squared. So when we work that out, we find out if the bullet masses are essentially the same or exactly the same, then the kinetic energy is going to be proportional to the ratio of the velocities squared. And if you'd like to try it, here's an example right here. Just watch how it works. Subsonic load development. What does 1050 feet per second mean to bullet stability and accuracy? Well, I'm not going to put a lot of advanced gazintas and whatnots in there. We'll just look at it with some little common sense. Let's take this first example. The 4570 government's been around for over 100 years. What, 1870 to 1970? What, 150 years? Is that right? Could that be right? So it's been around for a while. And the twist rate they normally put in barrels is 1 in 20, which means it has to go 20 inches before that bullet rotates one time. So if we have some ammunition that typically runs fairly stable and it runs at 2200 feet per second, and I'm running a 1 in 20 twist rate, if I cut that in half, say 1100, which is pretty darn close to 1050, don't I have to turn that bullet over in half the distance? In other words, I got to turn it over twice in 20 inches because I'm going half as fast. Can you see that? Subsonic load development. What is the relationship between bullet diameter and twist rate? Well, I'm not going to go into this very deeply because I think it's very much common sense. Think about which is easiest to spin and how long you can keep it spinning. A 20-penny nail on its end, a dreidel, a child's top, or one of those metal gyroscopes. Which one actually stays spinning at the slowest RPM? Well, of course, it's going to be that gyroscope. The same effect we see here. The larger the bullet, the less you need to spin it. Subsonic load development, RPM rate as a guide. We've already seen earlier how the 1 in 10 twist and 1 in 20 twist of the 458 SOCOM and 4570s match up to give approximately equal RPM. Now let's look what we have with the 270. If we use the 270 Winchester as the baseline, we find that it has about 225,000 RPM. Now if we check the 1 in 7 twist running supersonic, we see it's running at 110% of the 1 in 10 But if we run it with a subsonic that's at 1050, we end up only with 48% of the RPMs available with the standard 270. What do you say we try to wrap up this video kind of with this last segment, and we'll talk about gyroscopic stability and subsonics and their effect. Now, way back in the old days when we used to have slow going bullets, big caliber slow going bullets, they originally started out kind of round, weren't they? They were balls, and they might have a little flat spot up the top where the sprue was cut off, but essentially they were round, whether they be wadded or just full caliber or something like that. And because it's short and fat and it's round in all directions, it's pretty easy to spin. And what we find when we started going to the modern shaped bullets, where they're kind of conical, long or cylindrical like this with pointy on one end, what we discover is it takes more twist to stabilize a long shape than it does a short shape, because you don't have that gyroscope action kind of going on there, gyroscopic stability. Now we can try to spin this. It's probably not going to work too good. We might get a few revolutions before it falls over. All right, see that? Doesn't last long though, does it? Because it's long and floppy. Now, if this were like a 200 grain bullet, because it's a given caliber, say 30 caliber or 277, something like that, then you might get a 100 grain bullet by about this long of a bullet, and that makes it a little bit easier to stabilize than if you increase the length. And what do we know about subsonic bullets? Usually they're very heavy and they get long. And because they get long, they need even more twist. Now, on a good design, like the 270, you'll find that we have plenty of stability, and that's just the way it is. Good stable bullet runs in a great way, not a problem. When you start slowing it down, then you have to kind of talk about, like we've been talking about, the twist rate. So let's just try this. Let's go to Berger's website, and I'll take some screenshots as they do it. I think we typed in Berger bullets twist rate, and it popped up. We got a calculator here, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to slide up to the top, and we'll pick a bullet. In this case, I'm going to pick a 270 caliber, 170 grain EOL Elite. Select it, and it puts in all my information. I got to go over here and change the bullet speed to my 1050. And we're going to change the twist rate to say 1 in 7. And we'll leave the atmosphere, temperature, all the other stuff just like they have it. And we'll hit calculate stability. And then we'll go down here and look at it. And I'll take a screenshot of this, and it says stability is comfortably stable. That's a good sign. That's a good sign. Now, I want to come up here and I want to take Paul at Maker's data, go back up there, and we'll keep it at, let's see, change his 175 grains. So we're going to add another 5 grains there. We're going to check the bullet length, which is 1.49. We're going to do the ballistic coefficient at 392. That's what he says, 392. It is a little bit heavier, 392. 1 in 7. Keep everything the same, and we'll hit calculate stability there, and we'll pull it up, and it says it's still comfortably stable. So that might give us a little bit of a confidence if we work one of these loads up. Now,